Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Before we start with our today's analysis, we have an announcement. We have uploaded one of the videos with respect to places in news. The period for which the places in news are considered is between 11th of April up until 17th of April. Do watch this video, like and share it with your fellow aspirants. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says, how quickly can India move away from coal? Let us try and understand what is this article all about. Many states in India right now are facing power cuts. Why? That is because of the less power supply. We have the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu who has written to the Prime Minister of the country requesting him to provide requisite amount of coal to the state of Tamil Nadu. Then we have the Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra who also plans to import coal from multiple other countries. And when you consider Gujarat, it is also planning to import coal as well. So this article currently goes on to say that the coal stocks in more than 100 thermal power plants in India fell below the critical mark, which is less than 25% of the required stock, while it was less than 10% in over 50 plants across India. So what does this mean? This means that we have the shortage of coal. This is leading to the power crisis in India, and ultimately we may face more power shortages in the country. So the article points out, is it the right time for us to look at an alternative in the form of renewable energy sector? So this article currently goes on to say that yes, we have to look at renewable energy sector, but there are challenges with respect to renewable energy sector which we may have to work upon, and a right mix of coal and renewable energy will help India is what is this article all about. First up, let's look at the power generation units in India. When we look into the power generation unit, we have the central sector which accounts for about 24.9%. The state sector accounts for about 26.7%. But the private sector is what accounts for 48.5% of the power generation in the country. Do note, this can be very important from the preliminary examination point of view. And when it comes to the generation, we generate power from different types of sources. One, it can be coal. Next, it can be the renewable energy sources. Let's understand where we extract maximum power from. When it comes to fossil fuel based generation, we have coal whose generation is about 51.6%. Lignite is about 1.7%. Gas is about 6.3%. Diesel, it is about 0.1%. So when it comes to fossil fuel based generation, it currently occupies about 59.7%. Now what we have to focus is on the renewable energy sources. When it comes to renewable energy sources, 11.8% is captured by the hydro. Then we have the wind solar energy which has about 26.8%, where wind energy has about 10.2%, solar energy is about 12.7%, then we have waste to energy which is about 0.1%, small hydropower which is about 1.2%, then we also have nuclear which is about 1.7%, limiting itself to about 40.3%. So what do we actually witness? When we focus on fossil fuel based generation and non-fossil fuel based generation, what has the maximum capture in the overall power sector? It happens to be coal. So this article currently goes on to say that coal accounts for more than 50% of the country's energy needs, and it further says that if we look into India Energy Outlook 2021 report of the International Energy Agency, it says energy use in India has doubled since 2000. So basically this article currently goes on to say that in the near future we will have more demand when it comes to the power sector. As of now, the amount of power that we are generating is more with respect to the coal, but in the near future where the power demand will be more, supply might be considerably less. What we have to look at is other options apart from coal as well. Now the question is, why is there a shortage when it comes to coal in India? There is a demand supply mismatch. What do we understand with it? That is because we recently came out of the third wave. We had the first wave, we had the second wave, we had the third wave of the COVID-19. During this period, there were limitations or restrictions imposed on the extraction of the coal. What was happening? We knew for the fact that this COVID-19 could be transmitted easily. So what had happened? There were restrictions that were imposed for the coal mining extraction extraction, and as a result, because of the pandemic related disruptions, we were not able to extract coal. So the first major issue why we are facing the coal shortage or the crisis is because of the pandemic related disruptions where restrictions were laid for the extraction of the coal. That's the first point. The second point is because of the summer. We know for the fact that when it is summer, the temperature starts increasing in a very high rate, and during this particular period there is large scale energy consumption as well. All of us would be using the air conditioners, we would also be using the fans as well. This ultimately means there is lot of energy consumption not only at the homes but also in the offices premises as well. The second reason why there is requirement of coal is because of excessive energy that we are using in summer. The third is because of the economic activity. During the COVID-19 period, not much of economic activity happened. There were limited economic activity. Industries were also asked to restrict themselves as well. As a result, because of the opening up after the COVID-19, we had excessive economic activity, which also meant more power was being consumed, which also meant we required more coal to be used in India. As you look into it, about 51.6% is generated via the coal. So what we require is more coal when it comes to production of the electricity. Added to it, there is overconsumption of the electricity in India. Overpopulation has also resulted that we consume a lot of electricity. This also means that we have the requirement of coal based energy, and there is poor infrastructure when it comes to the coal based industries. What do we understand by poor infrastructure? Poor infrastructure means aging infrastructure, that which does not have the relevant technology, those equipments which are not able to save, are not efficient. That is what is called as poor infrastructure. So when it comes to the coal industries in India, we do not have the updated technology, there is no technology upgradation, and as a result what we have is a lot of wastage of energy, one in the generating units and also when it is being transmitted from the source to the destination. In fact, there are multiple other domains like the renewable energy options which are yet unexplored because of the multiple challenges. As a result, India is bound to suffer. What will be the impact on India? Demand for power will be high during the summer season. This will also give rise to inflation as well. How? As of now, we did witness that because of the war in Ukraine and Russia, this has already created inflation in multiple parts of the countries and also in many other countries as well. Now, if we do not have enough of coal reserves, we have to import it from some other country. This means the cost of the coal would be exorbitant, and at the same time, if we have to import, we have to shell out more cash, and this means the inflation with respect to the power sector will also start increasing. And if power is not provided to the people, if power is not provided and if power is cut in multiple other places, this also starts hurting the farmers as well. Because we do not have enough amount of power, because there is not enough amount of coal, this ultimately means there will be power cuts, and if there are power cuts, they would not be able to irrigate their lands, and ultimately the productivity and the yield with respect to the farming sector will also be disturbed as well. In order to overcome all these issues, what we have to do is we have to look at other options, where one of the options is in reference to the renewable energy sector. So the report of the Central Electricity Authority on optional generation capacity mix for 2019 and 30 estimates that the share of renewable energy in the gross electricity generation is expected to be around 40% by that financial year. The Union government has spent 3,793 crore until March 14 in 2021-22 for implementing varied renewable energy related schemes and programs. Despite spending so much by the government, there are inherent challenges in the renewable energy sector. What are these challenges when it comes to the renewable energy sector? The first major challenge is the seasonal variation. Let's consider the wind energy, or let's consider the solar energy. The wind and the solar energy have seasonal variations. That is, with respect to the solar energy, the amount of power that we would be able to generate during the summer season will be comparatively more in comparison to the winter season. And if you have to consider the spatial variability as well, let's say for example, along the coastal areas, what we would be able to generate is more wind power in comparison to drier areas like Rajasthan. So if we consider the coastal areas like Gujarat, there will be more wind energy that can be produced, but you consider the drier areas like Rajasthan, you would not be able to produce much of the energy from the wind source. So there are inherent issues. One, because of the seasonal variation, the other is because of the spatial variation, and also where is this wind energy source located. There will also be high initial cost of installation. What do we mean by it? Let's say, for example, one of the biggest challenges with respect to the renewable energy is the high cost of installation. While development of a coal-based power plant would require about 4 crores per megawatt, the investment required for wind and solar power plants is significantly higher. So when it comes to the coal-based, it will be comparatively less in comparison to the solar as well as the renewable energy. So what is the need of the hour? The need of the hour is we require technology upgradation. We have to import this updated technology from the foreign countries, and we have to monitor it constantly as well. The social acceptance of the renewable based energy system is still not very encouraging in urban area, which means they are still not ready to accept the renewable energy sector despite heavy subsidy being provided by the government for the installation of solar water heaters as well as the lighting systems. These are some of the problems that we see with respect to renewable energy sector. But what we have to understand is that we cannot always rely on coal, as it is also damaging the environment as well. So what we require is the right mix of coal-based power plants as well as the renewable energy sources like solar and the wind energy. So high cost associated with the renewable energy projects necessitates that we invest more on the research and development. A comprehensive policy framework is the need of the hour. So if we are able to invest more on the research and development, if we are able to come up with policy initiatives, and at the same time we have a mix of coal and renewable energy sector, we would be able to manage the power crisis in India. So given the vast potential of renewables in India, all it needs is a comprehensive policy, investor friendly regime, so that we can become the global leader in clean and green energy. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says China's Security Pact. We have discussed about this article in the last couple of days. We have discussed that we have Solomon Islands, which is currently in the Pacific Ocean, which has entered into an agreement with China. In the past, this particular country of Solomon Islands happened to be very close to Taiwan. It also was close to Australia as well. In fact, Australia was the country which was also providing security related protection to the country of Solomon Islands. However, what has Solomon Islands done right now? It has entered into a security pact with China. What do we understand with this security pact? Let's say, for example, we have Solomon Islands. All of a sudden, let's assume there is a public order issue, or there is a riot issue, or there is an internal turmoil. In that particular case, what will Solomon Islands do? It will immediately request China, and China would be able to provide its police officers. It would be able to send armed police. It would be able to send military personnel and other law enforcement agencies, so that this internal turmoil in Solomon Islands can be completely controlled. This particular initiative was earlier provided by Australia. Now a new agreement has been signed, which means that China will be providing this internal security related protective tools and provisions with respect to Solomon Islands. Added to it, we also know for the fact that Solomon Islands happens to be one of the strategic locations in the Pacific Ocean. Australia currently has a lot of control in the Pacific Ocean. Now what we will have is Chinese presence in this part of the strategic location. So they now would be able to send their navy, make frequent visits to the Solomon Islands. They would be able to carry out logistical replenishment. They would be able to stop over, make transition in the Solomon Islands, and relevant forces of China would be able to come up to this particular place and also have a strategic look in the Pacific Ocean. So on one side, we have Solomon Islands, which will request China to provide security for its internal issues. On the other side, on the external front, if consent is given by Solomon Islands, Chinese Navy would also be able to park its presence in this part of the Pacific Ocean. This has created a lot of tension in the Pacific Ocean. One is in reference to Australia. Why? Because previously Australia was providing security to the Solomon Islands. Now it is being provided by China. So China is replacing Australia, and we also know for the fact that in the past we had China and Australia which also had issues, and we also know for the fact that Australia, United Kingdom and United States of America entered into this AUKUS treaty. So China would be able to have a watch of Australia in the Solomon Islands. So the security which was provided by Australia is now provided by China. It is also concerned that this pact would also step up Chinese military presence within 2000 km from the Australia shorelines. United States of America has also condemned this particular initiative, and it also says that this can be a threat to the Pacific Ocean. In fact, United States of America also went on to say that it is planning to open many offices in Solomon Islands, and it is also planning to give some of the monetary advantages to the Solomon Islands. This is what we have discussed in the past. So this article currently goes on to speak about the expansionist policy of China. In 2017, China's People's Liberation Army put into operation its first foreign base in Djibouti to service Chinese ships in the Indian Ocean. Since then, PLA experts have said Beijing is keen to tie up more such arrangements as it speeds up building a blue water navy with a third aircraft carrier expected to be launched. Now the question is, what is this blue water navy? There are three types of navy. One is what we call as brown water navy. Second is what is called as green water navy. The third is what is called as blue water navy. What is this brown water navy? It focuses on coastal operations, and it is primarily defensive in nature. Let's say for example we have India. This is the coastal waters of India. If India is concentrating and protecting only its coastal territorial waters and inland waters that are present within India and close by to the territorial waters, that is what is called as brown water navy. So that particular country's navy, which has a defensive role, not an offensive role, but it is only protecting its coastal waters and not expanding its horizons beyond it, is what is called as brown water navy. So a brown water navy is that particular country's navy which operates within the territorial water. It can be inland as well as the coastal water. Then we have the green water navy. The green water navy extends from the outer edge of the brown water area and may grow up to the continental shelves. It can go up to 100 miles as well. So it is once again protecting its own country. So when it comes to the brown water area, it is only the territorial water, but when it comes to the green water navy, it is also expanding the kilometers or the naval miles, but it is also defensive in nature. Then we have something called as the blue water navy. What is this blue water navy? It is the capacity of that particular country to project its power. Let's say for example we have the United States of America. United States of America has a lot of aircraft carriers. So what does it do? It is not just restricting itself to its own coastal water, but it also ventures into open areas. It can be in Pacific Ocean, it can be in Atlantic Ocean, it can be in Indian Ocean. So that particular country whose navy is not just restricting or limiting itself to its own coastal waters or in and around it, but spreads its wings beyond its border in some other terrain, is what is called as blue water navy. So according to this article, it goes on to say China is planning to build the blue water navy, where it is planning to penetrate other areas. It can be Pacific Ocean, it can be Atlantic Ocean, or multiple other areas as well. Future ports include Karachi in Pakistan, Cambodia to access the Gulf of Thailand, South China Sea, and even Equatorial Guinea for China's first foothold in the Atlantic region. So basically, it is planning to spread its horizons of the naval forces to multiple other countries. Chinese counter-terrorism forces reports have also said they have already established a small presence in a base in Tajikistan near the China-Afghanistan border to monitor the threats that are emanating from Afghanistan. What this means is that China is not just restricting within its loop, but it is spreading elsewhere so that it can become a future power in the future. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about Raisina dialogue. What will happen at Raisina dialogue? What will be the implications to India and the world? We will discuss after this particular conference is concluded, but we will try and understand what is this Raisina dialogue all about. This happens to be India's premier foreign policy conference, where India is committed to addressing some of the most challenging issues facing the global community. What are the challenges facing the global community? This can be the climate change. So India will have number of partners coming up on this particular platform discuss about climate change. It can also be multiple other issues like Ukraine and Russia crisis right now, or there were United States of America Iran tensions in the past, or Afghan peace initiatives that we had taken up in the past. So basically it is India's premier foreign policy conference where the global challenges will be picked up by India, and you have multiple stakeholders coming together and they will discuss what solutions can be brought about with respect to the global issues. This happens to be India's contribution to the global efforts to discover solutions, identify opportunities, provide stability. Thereby, we would be providing a blueprint, a roadmap for a future. So this is organized along the lines of the Shangri-La Dialogue, which is held in Singapore, and this conference is hosted by Observer Research Foundation, which happens to be an independent think tank in collaboration with the Ministry of External Affairs. So remember, every year global leaders in policy, business, media, civil society, you have the cabinet ministers, local government officials involving the heads of that particular country all assemble. They will basically assemble on this particular platform to understand what are the global issues, what solutions can be brought about so that this particular issue can be ultimately solved. The first edition of the dialogue took place back in the year 2016. What is the significance of this particular dialogue? The Raisina dialogue has elevated the global profile of India. Basically, it brings into picture multiple strategic thinkers from across the world. Questions are asked to these experts and they will try and identify and bring out solutions to this particular problem. So this has elevated the global profile of India. Raisina dialogue is an opportunity for the world to see India's aspiration to play a major proactive role in the international relations. This means India is not just a spectator, but it is an active participant. It also wants to participate actively in the global issues. Raisina dialogue is also conceived as a platform for ideas, allowing India to enhance its importance, where it is open to opinions, willing to debate and negotiate, and ultimately understand the global interdependencies as well. And this dialogue also provides a platform for the young scholars and research to interact with number of global leaders. So this Raisina dialogue is a platform where India is sending a message to the global community that it desires to be recognized as an emerging and formidable force in the near future. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article, but once this Raisina dialogue is concluded, we will take it up in an elaborate way. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about the blue straggler. Let us try and understand what is this blue straggler all about. The blue stragglers are a class of stars on open or globular clusters that stand out as they are bigger and bluer than the rest of the stars. Let us try and understand what is this process all about. Let's assume there are a bunch of stars. These bunch of stars are born at the same time. They are formed from the same cloud, and this particular stars are what is called as the star cluster. As time passes, each star evolves differently. How? Depending on its mass. So they evolve differently depending on the kind of mass that they possess. The most massive and bright stars evolve. They move off the main sequence, creating a bend in their track, which is known as the turnoff. Some of the stars further bend. They also become brighter. They are not present in this main sequence, and such stars are called as the red giants. However, there are some stars which seem to be hotter than the turnoff of the parent cluster. Such is what is called as the blue stragglers. So basically, a blue straggler is a class of stars on open or globular clusters that stand out as they are bigger and bluer than the rest of the stars within the same cluster. Now let's look into the mains practice questions. Is renewable energy the solution to the emerging power crisis? Discuss. A security agreement between China and Solomon Islands could impact stability in the whole Pacific. Examine. So please write all your answers on the comment section. Peer review. Do give positive feedback to your friends' answers. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.